So I'm at Super Awesome. When I was at Mind Candy, we created Pop Jam, and in 2015, a couple of us on the senior management team, we all did a deal to move Pop Jam or sell it to Super Awesome, and it's a sort of a Pinterest for kids. Not really an Instagram because we don't allow selfies and that sort of thing, but it's an arts and interest community, and it's doing very well. And so that's how I ended up at Super Awesome. I love for people to ask me questions and ask me my opinion or ask for help or resources. I just love it. So don't hold back. So a little history. The first online community was really the Well. It was actually the first online community was in France, but it was in French, so that I'm not going to include that. But the very first English-speaking online community was the Well, and then, as you know, CompuServe and a lot of several commercial communities or online community spaces ventures came onto the scene, and it was very expensive. When I started in the Department of Defense for 16 years. I was in statistics and survey research, and so that's when I first got into the net, and that was like 83, and it was all Department of Defense. And then the first commercial groups were like AOL when they were Q-Link and CompuServe, et cetera. Apple had something called eWorld that I used to love, and it didn't last very long, and Prodigy and DollNet and stuff. So in the early 90s was sort of AOL, CompuServe, Prodigy, can't even read that. And there weren't any rules yet. I mean, we had these unspoken rules in the Department of Defense, and working on those kind of, I didn't work for the government, but I worked for a university system that had government contracts. And we had sort of unspoken rules, but then when it was open to the world, there was all kinds of stuff just happening, and nobody quite knew what to do. What happens about copywriting? What do you do about this? There was no e-commerce, et cetera. And so at AOL, we developed a lot of the what I see today used as protocols. Now, somebody might want to smack me over the head with something for saying that, but that's my perspective. If somebody older than me is around and has a different perspective, you can certainly remind me when we get to the Q&A. So we developed a lot of protocols, and everything was ASCII art, et cetera. And then when we started being able to use graphics online, we had the smiley faces, and then we created something called buddy lists, and those turned into Messenger, and what we use today is direct message or private message, et cetera. And so there wasn't much moderation. I mean, we were doing a lot of work at AOL, and that was my thing at AOL. I was there through most of the 90s, and I was responsible for the guides and hosts and message boards and training, and we had 16,000 volunteers by the time I left, and 5,000 when I took over that program. And I was sort of a fixer at AOL. I just kept going in and fixing programs. So we were developing. I had a whole team that developed protocols, netiquette online. How do you behave online, et cetera, et cetera. I guess we thought we were the only game in town, which we were in the early days. So we thought we could just decide how everybody needed to behave. So lots of different moderation companies started popping up over the years, and by about 2000, and then early 2000s, the kids started coming online. I remember reading a New York Times article in 1999 that said more women and children to come online soon. And we were thrilled and thought, yes, more women, more children. So I had all the kids at AOL after a person named Jen Kay, who started the AOL Kids. I took over all the children because nobody really wanted to deal with them, but I loved them. So we had to institute more policies and regulations as more children and young people came online. So then Neopets came around and Webkins, and there were those were the early kids sites, and then more moderation companies came around as that happened. E-moderation was one of the first, and there were many out there. E-moderation is now called the Social Element. And then, as Vanessa said, I went to Habbo, and I started there in 2002 or one, I can't remember which one. And it was the very early days, and there was just the UK and the Finnish site. And I obviously never went to the Finnish site because they had 27 consonants in every word. I didn't know Finnish. But we then got an infusion of money and went to 24 countries over the next 3 or 4 years. And so I managed the community moderation and content and hiring and moderators, et cetera, for those 24 countries. That was a great education. I also worked with a lot of teenagers those years, and that was kind of intense. And during that time, we built something for Disney called Virtual Magic Kingdom that was supposed to be for just a summer, and it turned out to be around for 4 years. So I managed all the people that managed that. And so more and more moderation companies started popping up. I was from the old school and hiring people I knew from AOL, or just started working with people who are still now with me all these years later, 18 years later. And it was everything was more and more, there was a lot more attention paid to kids online and regulations for advertising and safety and that sort of thing. So by default, I sort of became an expert in online child safety. I spent a lot of time working with the FTC and Parliament, and in Australia, I think I can't remember, but it's the Australian Federation something or other. So, worked with law enforcement, the OPP up in Canada, and did a lot of training in the early 2000s because there wasn't much support for online child predation or fraud or any of that. The FBI was overwhelmed, and so you had to have $50,000 or more worth of problems before you could go to them. And so, it was I'd have to track down some policeman in some little town in Florida and beg for somebody to help me because there was something bad going on here or there. So So I'm just going to fast forward. Facebook came along, Club Penguin, Moshi Monsters. I was one of the founders of Moshi Monsters. And then in the UK, something called UKIS, and it's now called UKSIS or something, came along. And COPPA, which is the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act of 1998, was sort of reformed and updated in around 2011 or 2013, something like that. And so I was involved in that. And then more moderation came online, COPPA 2.0, and then lots of reputation management became a whole thing. Facebook, obviously started that. Nobody wanted their names on the net in the early days, and now everybody wants their name and face on the net. So I think Facebook is largely responsible for that. So moving right along, and this was like early days of downloading, and some people I'm sure remember this, and universities and Department of Defense, and that's what I did between 80 and 95. I did a lot of DOLNet and eWorld, and I was a beta tester for Windows and the mouse in 90 or 89 or something, and said, "Oh, it'll never catch on." So what do I know? And then they started, getting to flat fees, because it used to be like $13 or $14 an hour to be online. And I remember the first time I got a commercial bill, it was $1,000, and that was like 93, and I just about cried for a week and thought, oh my God. So about 95, I think, everything started going flat fee, and that's when a lot of people and all ages started really coming online because it was affordable. But there were not many regulations, and they certainly weren't enforced if there were. So I'm just going to zip along here. I know I'm not zipping very well, am I? But so this is a joke about Newton's UGC, but that's what everybody in my team calls it, Newton's UGC Internet Behavior Rule. So I used to do a lot of studies at AOL because we had so many people. So it was a great place to really get statistics and do surveys. And that was my background. And so for years, I noticed that two things, that about 4 to 5% of the content online was dodgy or questionable or offensive. And in that 4 to 5%, there was everything between bullying and something really horrible, right? So that, but only less than 1% or 1 or less percent was really pretty bad, like something you'd have to go to law enforcement about. So, but when you have 8 billion people, that's 1% is a lot. So that was the first thing that I noticed consistently year after year. And then at HABA, we did a lot of polling because we had so many kids. And then at Mind Candy, at Moshi Monsters, we had 105 million registered kids. And so we had, probably 20 million a month coming through there. So we did a lot of polling there. And I found that consistent over all these years. This is my 27th year in the commercial web. And I've found that to be true. And I've talked to different moderation companies, moderation tool companies, and they say the same thing. So it just depends. Like in the adult world, there's a little bit higher number of problems than there are in the kids world. But and the other thing I found at AOL, and I think is probably still pretty true, was for every person who was active online, meaning that they posted content, they engaged, there were 12 lurkers. And I have a real penchant for lurkers. I love them. I think we need them. And they read, but maybe they don't get all involved for whatever reason. It's maybe down to 1 to 10 now or something. I think I heard recently that somebody did a study and they said there were like 9 or 10 for every one active person. But so love your lurkers. So one of the things I ran into working with kids was the S word, which is, I call it the S word because is it safety, is that people use the word safe when they really mean offensive, like unsafe. So they'll say, I saw the F word on your site. That site is not safe. Well, I've spent the last 20 active years trying to educate parents and teachers and law enforcement and stakeholders that the F word or any kind of swearing might be offensive, but it's not harmful. It's not going to physically be dangerous to a child or a young person. So I try to make sure that we use the right terminology. So I don't say, oh, that site's not safe, or this site is safe because they have a good filter or whatever. We do now have filters that are like almost 100% effective. So I don't have to worry about this anymore. But every once in a while, somebody figures out some way to get around the filter. And then, one of the things that happens is that somebody makes a Facebook page, and the next thing you know, there's, 10,000 parents online saying, oh my God, this place is unsafe, blah, blah, blah. And I was always 5 hours behind at Mind Candy because I was in the US on the East Coast. And I'd wake up to like mayhem and panic and people like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so I never panic. And I think that really helps. And it doesn't help to panic. That much I know. But I would be really comfortable talking to the press or to parents and educating them about, okay, that seems like a big deal, but I'd rather chase around somebody who's an online predator or a potential predator than worry about 10-year-olds using the F word, right? So this was back before filters were all that great. Now they're pretty good, but now what happens is we see that they've tried it, but it never gets through anymore. So we don't ban people just because they've tried it, because it didn't get through. So I'll get to that in a minute. But so I worked with the media and did a lot of PR on my own because I understood what I was talking about. And the PR people, in my opinion, that I worked with 10 years ago anyway, I haven't had to work with any in 5 years or so, were always wanting to sort of BS around what happened. And I never thought that was a good plan. I thought we should own it and say, this thing happened. Here's what we're going to do to address it. And and then just move on. But I think if you try to tell people, no, if you try to sugarcoat it or something, it just never works. And then the journalists really come after you. So I made friends with the journalists, and it helped. It made big difference. Following regulatory issues now more than ever is important. For 10 years, the FTC in the U.S. didn't really do anything about COPPA. They just didn't have the staff. They had like 2 people or something on staff. They have a lot more people now, and they're a lot more proactive about advertising to children and gathering data on children or young people without parental permission. So I think it's really important it's one of the things I always admired about Disney, in fact, is that they never tried to get around the COPPA rules or the FTC regulations. They were the first to say, we've got to adopt this, and this is what we're going to do. And I always thought that was smart business. And then working with kids online, and there are lines, right? There's professional versus personal. So it's really easy to get personally interested in a kid who is maybe really talented. Like in Pop Jam, it's mostly about art and drawing and interests and things. And so if we have some kid who's just an amazing artist and really is interested in Pop Jam or in the app or whatever it is that you're doing, it's hard you have to find that professional line where you can engage them and they can earn your trust, but you don't go too far. And so we do a whole training session with everybody that works with kids online. It's super awesome. We did the same thing at Mind Candy, and we do them every 6 months to a year, and to remind everybody that there's a line and you can't cross it. You can't talk about your dog's name, and you can't let them tell you their dog's name or what school they go to or anything. You have to tell them, no, that can't do that. That's not safe. But still be able to talk to them about what it is that they are passionate about. So that's what we do. And then I work with law enforcement around the world, mostly now in the UK, US, and sometimes Australia, not as much anymore in Australia. And that has been really interesting over the last 3 decades. But it's now it's so much more prevalent, and most law enforcement agencies have special units to deal with online child safety. That was just not true years ago. So you were kind of on your own. But now everybody's hyper aware of it, right? So I just wanted to show you some things that I show parents and teachers and law enforcement when they say, oh, my God, somebody said the F word or whatever. I show them this and say, okay, so every day, if you take the underground or the subway, or you're walking by a house, or you're in school or in the bathrooms or whatever, you're going to see this is the kind of stuff that kids see anyway. And I just read a report today. It's the EU Online Kids 2020 report. And it's a lot of really great scholars who study this, including Sonia Livingstone, who's brilliant. And they were talking about how they went to 19 countries, and I'm happy to send anybody the link to that report. But they were talking about how much content kids saw offline and online. And it was really interesting because, of course, you're going to see stuff online or on TV or in magazines or, whatever. So this is something that I use to educate parents, to remind them that it's offensive and it's not okay, but it's not like the only place they see it is online. So you don't tell a kid, you're never going outside again. You might see this on the side of a bus or something. So the same thing with the online world. The parents used to tend to say, you cannot go online. I'm taking away your phone. And that's sort of like saying you can't interact with humans, and especially now with the pandemic, right? So that's never really the answer. And then this is just one slide about moderation, because that's about a 4-hour seminar. But so our content is based on a workflow. And it's pretty fascinating how all this works, because now we have mostly images. So this is just a slide that shows, we do pre-moderated images, and it catches all the stuff that's potentially not appropriate. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's not appropriate. And not appropriate can be anything between somebody naked to somebody's school uniform. We don't allow school uniforms on at Pop Jam, and we also scan the backs of every photo. If it's a picture of a doll or something, we make sure there's nothing in the back that could identify the house, because a predator might say, "Oh yeah, I know you. You have a fluffy white cat," and blah blah blah. So we're very careful about what gets through, and that's what the pre-moderated do. And the post-moderated is mostly, you might want to look at this, and it's based on a 0 to 10 scale, and we never get past a 7. A 7 is the worst content. So. And then this is all stuff everybody knows. And honestly, I mean, Vanessa and I were talking about this. The behavior of kids is not that much different from the behavior of adults online, I've found. And I've worked with all age groups. Haven't really worked with seniors much, I have to admit, so I don't know. But kids, the main thing that kids do, young people, is they want attention, and in a different way. I mean, everybody wants attention, but they go about it in a different way. So they talk about self-harm. They bicker. They downgrade themselves, or the best defense is an offense, and they get very offensive, right? They try things out. They take things to the limit. We see it all the time. It doesn't go through, but it comes to all the moderators, and it shows what people are trying to say. And when they get in arguments or something, we have no private chat. I did that by design. I started that in 2007 because when I was at Habbo, it was the private chat that was where the worst behavior was. So that's still true today. So I think if you're working with kids under 13, there's no need for them to have private chat, in my opinion. So online, I mean, it depends on what you're doing, if you're teaching or something like that. But in any kind of a social situation, it's nothing but trouble. I'm telling you, it's nothing but trouble. There's no reason to have it, unless it's between a staff member, and then there should always be two, just to be safe. So somebody can't Photoshop something that you said to them, through the internet. I keep thinking you guys can see me, but you can't. Sorry. I'm making all these hand gestures for no reason. So there's my 1 to 12 lurker rule. And then I'm talking about offensive content versus positive content. And that's the thing that I try to remind everybody of all ages, is that there's so much great content, but there's 4 to 5% that's not so great, and that they yell the loudest, right? Squeaky wheels. So that's where all the journalists go, and it's anything that's sensational. But also remember that if something really bizarre happens on an app or your site, that in a day something else bizarre is going to happen. So especially if you're in America right now, so every day there's something else bizarre happening that makes the thing that happened yesterday look like nothing. So with offensive content, there's no reason to have offensive text anymore, but pictures and graphic images are a little different, or videos. So I'm just going to show you some fun stuff that the kids do, because this will make you smile, I hope. So these are staff. Our staff all have that S right next to their names, and they just interact with the kids and say, hey, take this picture and draw on it, or whatever it is that they do. And Music Man, those are all his fan art. There's a lot of kids are big on fan art. So if they're your fan, they send you all this art that you can turn into collages and show everybody, and they love that. And then here's what some of the trends that the kids are into. So they were in, what do they call their followers, right? And they love having followers. They all want to be the next influencer, right? That's a big deal. So we're building something at Super Awesome for kid influencers that's super safe and well moderated, and not, they can't really get to bad videos or inappropriate videos. And it's called Ruckus, Rukazz, and we're just about to launch it, so I'm pretty excited about that. So they're into adoption, adopt my kitty cat, adopt my art. They all want to be neon stars, and that's something that you earn by being a good citizen and contributing nice content, and content that actually contributes to the community as a whole. And I'll get to that in a minute too. So here's something about how we moderate. So we do this intentional moderation, and that's something I started in 2007 at Mind Candy with Moshi Monsters. And what I found at Habbo was that a lot of kids would get banned because a lot of boxes were checked. You know, if they did this, if they did that, ban them 4 hours. If they did that, ban them 6 hours. If they did this, ban them 1 hour. And sometimes either A, it wasn't the kid, it was somebody they gave their password to, which they all do. They all share their passwords. And so somebody got them in trouble and got them banned for 4 hours or something. Or it was, they just didn't understand that it wasn't acceptable behavior. Now, you know the difference between somebody's intention. So if I come in and I'm going to call myself Blue Girl 27, and I come in and I start posting inappropriate pictures or saying or typing or writing inappropriate things on posts, all the research that we've done shows that happens right away. Nobody invests weeks or months in an app and then throws it all away over the F word. So they go in right away and misbehave. So our first 5 to 10 posts in every place that I've worked are moderated, pre-moderated. So they don't go through until a human sees them and okays them. So in a nutshell, because this could take forever to even describe this, we have the intentional moderation, and it is based on it's sort of a behavior modification model, a user trust system. So as they contribute more and more positive content, they go up the ladder and get a lot more goodies, a lot more stickers, a lot more recognition. As they detract from the community and talk about self-harm, or my brother's dying of cancer, or I hate everybody, they're all bullies, and I'm going to kill myself, or whatever it is that they do that detracts from the community, then we just carefully take away more and more responsibility. So we start regulating their posts, and they figure that out. And so they often come back with new names and with a whole new fresh start, and are positive contributors. So we base everything on what is the intention of the person who's just posted. Are they intending to disrupt the whole community? Are they intending to upset or directly harm or offend somebody? Or are they just in a bad mood? Or are they just don't understand that we don't do that here? Or they don't know that they're not supposed to show their belly button or their friend's belly button. You can see that picture up there. Or say you are gay or something like that. So if we can tell by their user history, so we can at the click of a button look at their user history and see all their contributions. And you'll know if somebody's going to be on a rampage, all their stuff is going to be really negative. And so we just ban them. We don't write them. We don't try to turn them around. We don't talk to their parents. I mean, if their parents contact us, we talk to their parents and tell them what happened. But we just move on, because you could spend a day back and forth about whether it was okay to show your friend's belly button or just use the F word all day long. So I just didn't want to spend the energy and the time and the attention on that negative behavior. And it's worked out really well since 2007 to just move on and let them come back and have a fresh start, and nobody knows it's them. And so they feel like and if they do, they're like, oh, that was my little brother, or that was my cousin. So that's how we do it. We're sort of invisible. We don't get up in their grills, and we don't scold them, and we just say, you're not in this community anymore, and there's no explanation whatsoever except for you can't be here anymore. And they just make a new name and come right back. So these are just some of the things that we see, like who's got an iPhone. We wouldn't let that happen, and not trying to be rude but don't want to see the inside of your mouth. I think that's kind of funny. We wouldn't ban somebody for that, but you are gay. We wouldn't ban them for that, but we wouldn't let that through. No one loves me. We also don't let that through, but we don't ban them. So that's just so you can see. And then here's some of the cool stuff that they do. So, they're artists. They're great artists. And we encourage this, and we have something called rejamming, which is sort of like retweeting, or on Instagram, it's I don't remember what it's called, but, sharing or whatever. So these are some of really great pieces of art that we've found recently, and I thought you might enjoy seeing these. I love looking at these, and we're genuine with them about what we love about their art, and why we showcase it. And we do showcase as much as we can, and not just the best artists, but somebody who's really tried to do something well, right? If I'm 7, I'm not going to be as talented, or that's not the right word, as accomplished as somebody who's 12 or something. So we try to be fair about that and encouraging. So these are some more pieces of art that we thought were really fun. And this one over here with the wings is a piece of fan art for somebody. Our community engagement manager's name in Pop Jam is Lumpy, and they all think that she's a guy. And so, because she uses an ape for a little icon, and so they're always doing pictures of her. So just to sort of wrap up, very little is truly dangerous. We inspire kids to do or make something that keeps them busy, and that you can use that for any age group, by the way. Where there's boredom, there's trouble, usually. And that's how to find me again. Rebecca at RebeccaNewton.com is probably the easiest way to find me. And LinkedIn, and I have a lot of Rebecca Newtons out there because I've been at this forever.